Welcome to Football Today Team Profiles and Previews, and today we are looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who come in our power rankings at 19th, went 9-8 last year. Offensively, they are 20th in scoring, 12th in EPA per play. Defensively, 7th in scoring, 18th in EPA per play. It's a little swapperoo right there. Head coach Todd Bowles returns for his third season after Bruce Arians stepped down. Liam Cohen is back in the NFL. He was Kentucky's OC last year, Rams OC the year before. Kentucky OC the year before that, and then Rams assistant coach the year before that. He's been a little, going back and forth between Kentucky and Los Angeles. And I also learned this. They don't have a defensive coordinator, Justin. They have no named defensive coordinator. But Baker Mayfield led this team to a division win in a weak division, a playoff win, and then took the Lions to the wire. They signed Baker back for 3 years, $115 million, with $50 million guaranteed, and are looking to grow in their success. Do you think this Bucs team is going to grow in their success?
I don't know. I really don't, because last year they were one of the most overachieving teams in the NFL. They were 7th in pass plays of 20 plus yards. They were fun offensively. They were even fun defensively. They have some fun defensive players, but sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't. They were 5-1 in their last 6 games. That's really where they did the majority of their damage. They were 4-7, leaving Week 12 after a loss to the Colts, and they got hot at the right time. We see it all the time in the NFL. I had an epiphany. Do you want to hear my epiphany?
What's your epiphany?
My epiphany, with a couple things when looking at the Bucs. I'm lower on the Saints than I initially thought. And I want to challenge you on the New Orleans Saints. I do not want this to turn into a Saints TPP, because we already did that, because they were lower on our power rankings. But I think this is where you see good coaching on display, and this is where I tie the Bucs back in. Specifically, there was decent offensive coaching. I think Shane Steichen, I'm going to talk about some critiques that I had in some areas where I think the new offense coordinator could come in and be much
Dave
better.
Canales.
What did I say? Did I say Shane Steichen?
Yeah.
Nope, I meant Dave Canales.
I was wondering why you're talking about Shane Steichen pre-show.
Dave Canales, new coach of the Carolina Panthers. So there was some issues that I had with him last year, and you saw it with the Bucs. The Bucs have had a lot of just trouble running the ball on early downs, and we're going to talk about that. But I think you see where the Bucs overachieved. What was their over-under last year? Maybe 6.5, 5.5. They were expected to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, and instead, you had the Saints that were expected to be one of the better ones. They're supposed to take jumps up. And you had the Bucs beat them. And you had the Bucs win that division with good coaching. So that's why I am higher on the Bucs somewhat, and even lower on the Saints. There you go. That was really bad by me.
The Bucs went 1-5 last year versus playoff teams, and then won a playoff game. And this team is like, you look at one thing like, oh, this is really good, and then you're like, this team, oh, this part's really bad. Like, it's a hard team to pin down, which in my mind that means they're going to go either 9-8 or 8-9. But we'll start with the offense like we always do. With Liam Cohen, like, they should be a straight drop back team. I know Liam Cohen wants to do some play action stuff, but they should be a straight drop back team, right? Get the ball out of Baker's hand quick, which was a pass issue for him last year. It wasn't. Which led to, 82 catches for their running backs. But, like, they can't be a team that runs play action. Baker had a negative 8% differential in play action, and the film backs it up too, right? Like, he was 42nd out of 45 quarterbacks in play action completion percentage differential.
Whoa.
Right? Like, just, you can't turn Baker Mayfield's back to the defense. He needs to be looking at the defense at all times, or he's a bad quarterback. And then you mentioned some of like the deep ball stuff they did, right? Like, they were 6 in deep passing touchdowns, right? That's awesome. But they were, Baker was 34th of 40 quarterbacks in deep passing completion percentage, right? And they only had 1 drop on those deep passes. So if you did adjust in completion percentage, he'd be 39th of 40, right? So, like, do those numbers even out? Do they get less touchdowns but complete the rate? So, and then, you have weapons on the offense, right? Like, the passing game should be at least decent. You have Mike Evans coming off of over 1,200 yards and 13 touchdowns again. Chris Godwin, who played mostly out wide this year, had 1,000 yards, and he's only 28 years old. And then you have the run game. You have an offensive line where you kind of like this offensive line, but they were awful running the ball last year. So it's it's a hard offense to pin down like of what they're going to be in 2024.
Yeah, let's talk about them on early downs and then third and fourth down. Because this is where I think Baker is going to get better. And I think this is where Liam Cohen is really going to try and help out. And he's already talked about this. He's commented on his plans to change up how and when the offense runs the ball on early downs. And I bet you he's looking at these, sort of maybe these same similar numbers that I'm going to be talking about. Early downs in quarters 1 through 3, by the way. Number 42 in accuracy, 30th in EPA per attempt, and 30th in success rate. Third and fourth downs, number 6 in accuracy, number 6 in EPA per attempt, and number 10 in success rate. So, I think that has a lot to do. Like, the Bucs were just really bad on early downs. They were bad throwing the ball, and they were really bad running the ball. And I have numbers on that, too, if you want to get into it. But I know we're talking about the passing offense right now. If you think that Baker Mayfield is going to level off, like, oh, man, he's just not going to be as good on third and fourth down, those late downs, he's not going to be as good. You mentioned play action. When are you not running play action? You're not running play action on third down. So even that backs up that statement and that stat. I think it's going to even out on both levels. He may not be as good on third and fourth down as he was last year, but I think Liam Cohen is going to help this rushing offense and therefore even help Baker Mayfield be more efficient on early downs, and it's going to even out in some area.
I think the biggest thing for this team is going to be turnovers. Are they going to, is Baker going to have those bad turnover games, right? Like, he had 10 interceptions last year, I believe. That's low for a Baker Mayfield. That's the biggest question. Like, can they just not turn over the ball? Because they have, like you said, Mike Evans is an awesome weapon, right? Chris Godwin, and Chris Godwin's coming back from injuries, too. So he's another year healthy. Godwin had 6 less targets than Mike Evans and 4 more catches, right? They were top 20 and top 15 in both targets and catches last year. We could talk about that slot wide receiver. Who do they go with, Trey Palmer or Sterling Shepard? But either way, Shep is like the perfect guy to bring Palmer along if it is Palmer. Let's talk about the offensive line, because I think this group has the ability to be really good. Right? They allowed 40 sacks last year, which was middle of the pack. You have an all-pro in Tristan Wirfs, right? Made the switch to left tackle, looked amazing, right? So that's sick. They drafted Graham Barton in the first round. He's going to start as center. Then you have Cody Mock, who they like a lot. He's going into year 2. And then you have Ben Bredesen and Robert Hainsey, both guys who have started a lot of games in the NFL. Both kind of had ups and downs, battle for that other guard spot. Like, I think this offensive line can be it's a lot on Barton being good right away and Cody Mock making a step up. You got Gadecki at right tackle, but it could be a really good offensive line. It's had a lot invested into it.
Are you going to get mad at me if I say that Graham Barton's my X factor because it's another first round pick that I'm saying is an X factor? For a team?
X factors cannot be first round picks. You're driving me nuts with these X factors.
All right, well then I'll change my mind. Oh no, I know who my X factor is going to be. It's going to be your X factor. We have the same X factor on the defense side of the ball, correct?
No, that's not my X factor. He's just one of my favorite players.
Then I'll talk about him when we get to him. Graham Barton. Why I feel like Graham Barton could be so important for this Bucs team, especially from day one. If he's going to be at center, and I don't know the Bucs offense, I don't know what Liam Cohen's going to put responsibility wise, but calling out those certain protections, the run game, it seems like there's going to be different things that Cohen is going to implement run game wise. And I'll even read you a quote where Cohen criticized Canales' approach to the offense last year when he said how he planned to fix the offense. And this especially intersects with the offensive line. Some diversity in terms of giving these guys different ways of hitting blocks, whether it's the mid zone, the wide zone, the tight zone, duo, gap, with pullers, perimeter runs. Defenses are too good to say that. We're just going to line up and run a few runs. We have to give these guys a toolbox, and also that goes along with giving them multiple plays in the huddle. So it seems like the play caller, one of his goals this year is to help out the offensive line, and Graham Barton may have a huge part in calling everything out, setting everything, and we'll see if he can handle that from day one in year 1.
Yeah, it's going to be important because their run game was awful last year. Arguably the worst in the NFL. It was the worst in yards per carry and total yards, right? So that's that would go in the bad category. You have Rashad White, who was 8th in scrimmage yards last year, 4th for running backs, 14th in rushing, 40th in yards per carry. And then you add Bucky Irving, who can give you some juice as like maybe explosive plays, but I don't think he's going to help you a ton on a down-to-down basis. But, the worst the Rams' run game has ever been under Sean McVay is the Liam Cohen year, right? And basically the only Sean McVay offensive coordinator who didn't upgrade positions, after leaving the Rams, where he went back to college as an offensive coordinator. Like, I don't know if Liam Cohen inspires me to think that this. No, I don't think they'll be 32nd, right? That offensive line should not have this running game 32nd. But I don't know if I'm saying they're going to definitely be top 25, right? So I think the running game is going to be really bad again. And I mean, I still have Baker questions, right? He's been an up and down quarterback his entire career. And, like you said, they kind of overachieved for what they really were.
Right. But the key is, I think, on early downs is to just not, if the run isn't working, then just don't do it as much. Because they've been doing this.
But you're putting the ball in Baker's hand a little more. Like, I think sometimes we underestimate what play callers are wanting. It's like, hey, let's get explosives and let's not put ourselves in harm's way too often. Because the defense is good. We'll talk about the defense in a second.
Yeah. Oh, the defense is. I even have questions on that defense. This is a young team. This is a young team in certain spots. In certain spots, this is a young team that's banking on the development of guys, especially on defense. But Tampa Bay ranked number 2 in run rate on first downs in the first half last year, despite ranking dead last in EPA per rush and dead last in yards per carry. They were number 31 in success rate on first downs, and there's way more numbers as well about overall how the Bucs ranked as well. The 4.2% explosive run rate, which was not very good. It was number 31 in the league. So it wasn't good. Now, I mentioned how Baker Mayfield's early down passing numbers, his accuracy numbers, EPA per attempt, how that wasn't good as well. But they have to get the efficiency of the run game to be better to help out Baker Mayfield, to give the defense a couple different looks and shit like that, where I just think it's going to get better. I think the passing game will get better with Liam Cohen, at least on early downs. Not saying that the run game will, but I think Cohen will do a good job of not doing it as much. But then it brings up the question of, will Baker be able to avoid the negative plays, the sacks, and the interceptions? If you're going to ask Baker Mayfield to do more, will that be, what costs will that come at? That's the question.
You kind of got to just trust Baker, right? And I think that's the reason why.
You paid him, you got to, trust him.
One, you paid him, but I also think, they only gave him $50 million guaranteed, right? So it's not the biggest, contract. It's like, oh, this is our guy. It's kind of like, this is our guy right now type of thing. So we'll see. Like, this offense very much is in the hands of Baker Mayfield. Because even last year, the offensive line wasn't, pass blocking wise, wasn't awful. Defensively, right? We talked about the rankings. They were 7th in points, 18th in EPA per play. Passing, crazy to see this stat. They were 4th in passing yards last year, but they're 25th in yards per attempt and 22nd EPA. Rushing, they were top 5 in all the categories. They're going to come after you. That's what Todd Bowles is going to do, right? He's going to blitz the shit out of you. He's going to stop the run. All 11 guys are going to be vital in stopping the run. They were 7th in sacks last year with their 3rd highest blitz rate, and they're just going to come after you. They're going to play with no fear on the back end.
I think one of their Achilles' heels is that they just allowed a lot of explosive pass plays. I think that's why you see the discrepancy in that.
Yeah, I think the 2nd most air yards in the NFL. So they're susceptible, like you said, to the big play. And they lost Carlton Davis, too. Like, we'll talk about the secondary in a second. But there is worries on this defense as well, even though they were good last year.
Tell me about the guys that they lost, because I think that's what may define this defense this year.
Yeah, I mean, they lost Carlton Davis, right? But also Carlton Davis wasn't perfect last year either. Like, he gave up a lot of yards. He wasn't no stranger to giving up the big play.
Shaq Barrett.
So you lose Shaq Barrett. So they're gonna Jamal Dean, either Zion McCollum or Bryce Hall will start at a corner. 2 of those 3, and then Christian Izine, the UDFA out of Rutgers, will be his 2nd year. We started week 1 for them, and I love him as a run defender. And then the saving grace is you got a really good safety duo, right? Like, you've Antoine Winfield Jr., who's a top 5 guy, got that huge contract, so he's happy. And then him and Jordan Whitehead is, they can go head to head with any safety duo in the NFL. So
They won a
that's your
Super Bowl
saving
together.
grace.
They won a Super Bowl together, those two guys. And I love, since they went on that postseason run, I love Jordan Whitehead, and I love how both of them are dudes, man. They're playmakers. I think Whitehead's, I don't want to say Whitehead's more physical because Antoine Winfield literally does anything and everything, but I think Whitehead is more physical, meaning that's like his game. But I mean, you saw him make 3 interceptions against the Jets, against the Bills for the Jets, week 1 opening week. So I think they're one of the best safety duos in the league. Antoine Winfield is one of the more unique players in the NFL, and he does it all. He had 6 sacks last year, 6 tackles for loss, 8 QB hits, 6 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions, and 12 pass deflections. I think through like mid-October, there was like 6 games where he forced like a turnover, which may have been like every single game. He was on an insane run to start the year last year where it's just like, all right, if one game you're going to get a sack, another one you're going to get an interception, another one where you're going to have like 1 or 2 forced fumbles. It was an insane run that he went on early last year, just how much he impacted the game.
Yeah, he got paid like it too. Like Todd Bowles is going to ask everything from him, and he's someone who can deliver on everything, right? Like they're an attacking defense. Antoine Winfield is an attacking player. He's going to force you to have negatives. Like he's going to take away stuff from you. Now, again, on the back end, that can leave you leaving you to give up some big plays. But like you said, that safety duo is nice. But it does start with the front for Tampa Bay. And Vita Vea, we don't need to talk about him, but he's one of the best two-way players in the NFL at defensive tackle. He's not right there. He's not up there with those Chris Jones, Quinnen Williams, Dexter Lawrence guys. But he's as good as they come two-way. And I want to talk about this guy because I want to talk about him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited for Kalijah Kancey in year 2. Right?
He's my X factor.
He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. He had that injury in the beginning of the season last year, and his rookie season wasn't amazing, but I thought it was solid. Right? Like he had sacks, he had 10 tackles for loss in the regular season. When you include the playoffs, he had 12 tackles for loss and 6 sacks in 14 games. That's pretty good for a defensive tackle. And then here's where I got really excited for him. Because he stepped it up in the playoffs, right?
Yes.
Like I went and looked at in the playoffs. He had the 3rd highest pass pressure percentage in the NFL, 3rd highest to Matabukwe from the Ravens and Fletcher Cox. He was 5th in pass rush win rate for defensive tackles in all the playoffs, and Vita Vea was 1st. By the way, he had a sack in each of those games. He had a tackle for a loss in each of those games. And I think he's only going to get better. Like I think he's.
And by the way, what offensive lines did he play in the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't know. The Philadelphia Eagles and the Detroit Lions are they pretty good, right? Like even in the regular season, going against the Lions, right? Puts Penei Sewell on his face and makes a stop. So I think this is a guy who's only going to get better. I think he's going to be a 15 tackle for a loss guy every single season, and I don't think he's far away from being a 10 sack guy at that defensive tackle spot. I think he's going to be such a huge addition for them. Specifically when you have Vita Vea, right, who can 2-gap and play 2-way so well, and you can give him more responsibilities to, and then you allow Kalijah Kancey to play more attacking. Todd Bowles is going to let him do it. Like, I think he's a 10 sack, 15 tackle for a loss guy this year.
Yeah, I think Kalijah Kancey is one of the easiest breakout players, like 2nd year breakout, whatever, whether it's 3rd year, whatever. Easiest candidates for a breakout. And I was going to talk about the postseason. I'm so glad you did. Yeah, he's my X factor, 100%. Like I think he could be a superstar.
Absolutely, I think I think he will be a superstar. On the edge, so you did your X factor. Here's my X factor. Yaya Diaby had a good rookie season, 7.5 sacks, 12 tackles for a loss. But out of 94 edges, he was 61st in pressure percentage, 79th in pass rush win rate. I think he's got to step it up to sustain that same level of play. Like he was good, he's a solid run defender, but you lost Shaq Barrett, and I would still say Joe Tryon's a better player than Yaya Diaby. I know they declined his option, which I don't understand why. And Yaya Diaby's fresh and had better box score stats last year. But I still think Joe Tryon's their best. But Yaya Diaby can become that. But I do think he needs to make a step up in his game to do that. Now, he was awesome rookie year, especially for being a 3rd round draft pick. But he's my X factor for them because you lost Shaq Barrett. Joe Tryon is solid but not great. Yaya Diaby, make that step up.
Yeah, that's the one area of the defense where the Bucks only have $8.5 million in cap space, so it's not even like you could say that they maybe could have afforded Shaq Barrett. But I'll give Yaya Diaby a break because I never expected. Now he's on the older side.
He's a third-round rookie. If he does that every year, I'm happy with it. But he's my X factor for them to take a step forward.
Right. He's 25 years old, so he was an older rookie. And that was a guy that we liked, but we were talking about like Yaya Diaby. Yeah, it makes sense in the 4th, 5th round. So 3rd round was high, but worth it. Worth it for that rookie.
Yeah, you get that production every year, you're happy. But I think he needs to be better down in, down out to get that production every single year.
Agreed. 14 pressures last year, 8 QB hits, 7.5 sacks. So according to Pro Football Reference, and I know this, even though they say that they don't, they do count sacks as QB hits. They say that they don't, but they do. So if he had 7.5 sacks last year, so what that makes only 1 QB hit that he had just alone that was not counted as a sack. So that's a crazy hit rate. It's a crazy hit rate.
I mean, PFF has him as 3 quarterback hits last year.
Okay.
Which is really, really bad. And again, 14 pressures, and then you have the 7.5 sacks, right? So it's like, again, that's where people are like, oh, sacks don't matter. It's like, yes, they do. That's the dumbest shit people ever say. Like the things that get you off the field, more correlated to getting you off the field than anything, sacks matter. But when you look at a Yaya Diaby season, you're like, yeah, he might not be a guy who's going to replicate those sacks. So, but that's why he's my X factor, to keep up that production.
Are we still considering Randy Gregory a football player in the NFL?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's here.
Well, let's talk about their additions and loss. Add Sterling Shepard, Ben Bredesen on the offensive line, Bryce Hall, Randy Gregory, and then Jordan Whitehead. They lost Aaron Stinney, Shaq Barrett, Devin White, and Carlton Davis. So Ben Bredesen over Stinney, that's an upgrade. I think Shep is going to be, he's not going to put up a bunch of yards, but I think he's valuable. Bryce Hall, I think, is an underrated signing. Whitehead, we like. Devin White is addition by subtraction. Carlton Davis, they're going to miss him. And then Shaq Barrett, I mean, at some point, Shaq Barrett, was going to move on from Tampa. I kind of a wash there.
I don't know. I think Devin White. I like Devin White.
It was bad.
I know.
And you have Levante David there, who's still the man for them in that run defense. I genuinely think White will be addition by subtraction.
Okay. Just a core of players that have been there for a long time that helped you win a Super Bowl that are leaving, and it's a time for transition. And I think that could be tough, but you also need these players to step up.
Absolutely. The draft class, I got Graham Barton in the 1st round, Chris Braswell, linebacker at Alabama in the 2nd round, Tyke Smith, Georgia safety in the 3rd round, Jalen McMillan, wide receiver at Washington, also in the 3rd round, Bucky Irving, 4th round, Elijah Klein, 6th round, and then tight end Delvin Culp in the 7th round. So I think Tyke Smith could come in on some 3-down safeties. Chris Braswell can very well be starting next to David, and then Graham Barton's can start. Be interesting to see with McMillan, right? I think he's a guy who could probably play, and then Bucky Irving could kind of give them some big play threat, at least early on, which they desperately need out of that run game. So I think it's the draft class that we're not going to look at it and be like, oh, that's a class, man. That changed it. But I think they've got 4 to 5 guys who, have decent roles on an NFL team.
Over under.
Well, my X factor was Yaya Diaby. Yours was Kalijah Cansey. Over under 8.5 wins, Justin, which I feel like is a perfect over under for the Bucks.
Under.
Me too. Saints to me are a better team than them. The Falcons added Kirk Cousins. I think they're the 3rd best team in their division.
I'm not sold on the Falcons winning the South.
Me neither, but to me it's.
But it just feels like they have to. Like,
but here's my thing: if the Falcons don't win, I think the Saints will. I think the Saints have the same exact record as them: a better, sustainable defense. Offensively, I would take Tampa. Um, but I think there's just I would take New Orleans over the Bucks.
And I would have the Bucks finishing in second.
Okay. All right. That is the Tampa Bay Bucks, and this is Football Today.